Captain Hanbin stood tall on the bright stage as cameras flashed around him. The massive screens behind him showed the waiting Starship, humanity's first faster-than-light vessel, a gift from the Galactic Council. He kept his face neutral, but his stomach turned as he looked at the ship through the station's viewing window. Even from here, he could see the scratches and patches on its hull. "We welcome Earth to the galactic community," the council speaker said, his blue scales shimmering under the lights. "This vessel represents our trust in humanity's potential." His words dripped with fake kindness that made Hanbin's jaw clench. The ship was huge, nearly a kilometer long, but it looked like it had been dragged through an asteroid field. Its dark gray hull showed countless repairs, and some of its outer plates didn't even match. The name Dawn's Burden had been hastily painted on its side, covering what looked like older text. First Officer Jai Yun walked up beside Hanbin, her tablet clutched tightly in her hands. "Sir," she whispered, "initial scans show multiple system failures. Life support is barely working, and the engine room." She stopped, shaking her head. Hanbin watched as the other council members smiled their strange smiles. He saw it now. This wasn't a gift. It was a joke. They had given humanity the worst ship in the galaxy and expected them to be grateful. "Captain, please accept this vessel on behalf of Earth," the speaker said, holding out a data chip that would transfer control to the human crew. Hanbin took the chip, forcing a smile. "Earth thanks the Council for this generous gift." He felt the eyes of every alien species on him, the tall bird-like Avari, the crystalline Nexus beings, and the slug-like Muri, all of them waiting for humanity to complain or show disappointment. But Hanbin had grown up in the tough streets of New Seoul. He knew when someone was trying to make him lose face. He also knew the best response was to smile and prove them wrong. The crew began boarding procedures an hour later. Engineer Do-Won's voice crackled over the comm as Hanbin walked through the ship's main corridor. "Captain, you need to see this. Engine room now." The walk to the engine room took longer than it should have. 2 lifts weren't working, and they had to take the emergency stairs. When they arrived, Do-Won was standing in front of the main power core, his face lit by its weak blue glow. "Look at these readings," Do-Won said, pointing to his screen. "The power output is all wrong. These patterns, I've never seen anything like them. It's like someone deliberately mixed up the connections, but..." He paused, his eyes lighting up. "But they did it in a way that makes no sense, almost like they were hiding something." Jai-Yun stepped forward, her fingers moving quickly over her tablet. "Captain, I'm finding similar patterns in other systems. Navigation, weapons, even the food processors. Everything's been modified, but not in ways that follow any known engineering rules." Hanbin looked at the core, then at his crew. These were Earth's best, chosen not because they came from the top schools or had the best connections, but because they could think differently, solve problems others couldn't. "The Council expects us to either give up and admit we can't handle their technology, or blow ourselves up trying," Hanbin said, his voice firm. "We're not going to do either. Jai-Yun, start a full ship scan, but keep it quiet. Do-Won, map out every strange modification you find. I want to know what they're really hiding in this heap of metal." Technical Officer Yanji's voice came over the comm. "Captain, Council inspectors are requesting permission to board. They say it's a standard procedure to ensure proper handover." Hanbin smiled. "Let them come. But first, Do-Won, make sure our guests only see what they expect to see. If they planted surprises in this ship, I want to find them before anyone else does." As Hanbin watched his crew move with purpose, he felt a spark of hope. The Council thought they were handing humanity a piece of junk. They didn't understand that humans had built their civilization on taking broken things and making them work, on finding treasure where others saw trash. "One more thing," he told his crew. "Until we know what we're dealing with, everything we find stays between us. The Council wants a show. Let's give them one." but the real performance. He touched the worn wall of their new ship, feeling its hidden potential. The real performance is going to be something they never saw coming. 3 days after receiving the Dawn's burden, Engineer Do-One hadn't slept much. He sat in the engine room, surrounded by holographic displays showing the ship's power systems. Something wasn't right, and he knew it. "Look at this again," he said as Captain Hanbin entered the room. Do-One pointed to a series of energy readings. "Every time we try to increase power above 20%, these patterns appear, but they're not random failures. They're too perfect." Hanbin leaned closer to the display. Even with his limited engineering knowledge, he could see what Do-One meant. The power drops followed a clear pattern, like a dance that repeated itself over and over. "Show me," Hanbin said. Do-One pressed a few buttons, and the main engine hummed to life. As the power level rose, warning lights began flashing. But Do-One wasn't looking at the warnings. He was watching a small screen showing energy waves. "There," he pointed excitedly. "See how the wave changes." In a normal engine, power fluctuations would be chaotic. These are structured. Someone programmed the engine to fail in specific ways. First Officer Jai-Yun walked in, carrying 3 cups of coffee. "The council inspectors just left," she said, handing out the cups. They seemed very interested in how poorly we're managing the ship. "Did they see anything they weren't supposed to?" Hanbin asked. Jai-Yun smiled. "No, sir. Yunji set up fake displays showing exactly what they expected. A struggling human crew barely keeping the systems running." "Good." Hanbin turned back to Do-One. "So what are they hiding? Why go through all this trouble to make a ship look like junk?" Do-One took a long drink of coffee. "I have a theory. These aren't normal engine components. Look at the metal they used." He pulled up a scan of the engine core. "This alloy, it's designed to handle way more power than what we're seeing. It's like putting a jet engine in a car, but making it run like a scooter." Technical Officer Yanji's voice came through the comm. "Captain, you need to see this. Bridge, please." When they reached the bridge, Yanji was standing over her console, her face lit by a strange purple glow. "I was running deep scans of the hull when I found these." She brought up a series of images showing the ship's outer layers. "There are channels running through the entire hull, but they're not for power or cooling. They're empty." "Empty?" Jai-Yun asked, stepping closer. "Like veins waiting for blood," Yanji said. "And look at this pattern. It's the same as the power fluctuations Do-One found." Hanbin looked at the massive display showing their ship. The Dawn's burden didn't look so ugly anymore. Now it looked like a puzzle waiting to be solved. "Sir," Jai-Yun said suddenly, "incoming transmission from the council. They want to know if we'd like to return the ship for something more suitable for our level of development." The bridge crew fell silent, waiting for Hanbin's response. "Tell them," he said slowly, "that we are honored by their gift and look forward to learning its operations fully." He turned to his crew. "Double the security on all our findings. No data leaves this ship. If they're this interested in taking it back, we must be onto something." Do-One spoke up from his engineering station. "Captain, I'd like permission to try something. These channels in the hull, if we route power through them in the same pattern as the engine fluctuations, it could be dangerous," Jai-Yun warned. "Everything about this ship is dangerous," Hanbin said. "But that's not going to stop us. Do-One, set up the test. Jai-Yun, prepare evacuation protocols just in case. Yunji, make sure our friends in the council can't detect what we're doing." As the crew moved to their tasks, Hanbin watched through the main viewport as a council ship passed by, its crew probably laughing at the humans struggling with their broken-down vessel. "They think they're teaching us a lesson in humility," he said quietly. "But they forgot something important about humans. We learn fast, and we're really good at fixing things they think are beyond repair." Do-One looked up from his work, his eyes bright with excitement. especially when those things were never really broken in the first place. The Dawn's burden docked at Starbase 7, its worn hull standing out among the gleaming ships of other species. Engineer Du-1 sat in the ship's main conference room, facing Captain Hanbin and the rest of the senior crew. His hand shook slightly as he pulled up the holographic display. "What I'm about to show you," he said, "goes against everything we know about spaceship design." The display showed the ship's power core, now overlaid with new readings from their tests. "We've been thinking about this all wrong. This ship isn't broken. It's incomplete." First Officer Jai-Yun leaned forward. "Incomplete? What do you mean?" Do-1 pressed a button, and the display changed to show the empty channels they'd found throughout the hull. These aren't just random spaces. They're meant to carry energy, but not in the way we usually think about it. Look what happened when we ran our test. The display showed a recording of their experiment. As power flowed through the channels, strange patterns of light rippled through the ship's structure. Instead of following normal power distribution paths, the energy seemed to dance, creating complex geometric patterns. "The Council didn't give us a broken ship," Du-1 said, his voice rising with excitement. "They gave us parts of something they couldn't understand. I think this ship was built by someone else, someone far more advanced." Technical Officer Yanji stood up and walked to the display. That would explain the modifications. The Council found this ship, couldn't figure out how it worked, and tried to force it to run on their technology. And when that failed, Hanbin added, "They gave it to us, expecting us to fail too." Through the conference room window, they could see aliens from other ships pointing at the Dawn's burden, some laughing, others shaking their heads. A group of crystal-like beings were taking pictures, probably to share jokes about the primitive humans and their junk ship. "I have an idea," Du-1 said, pulling up another display. "Earth's quantum computer research. We've been developing ways to handle energy that the Council races haven't even thought of yet. If we combine our technology with what's already here, it could be dangerous," Jai-Yun warned. "If we're wrong about this." "We're not wrong," Yunji interrupted. She pulled up her own data. "I've been analyzing the ship's structure at the molecular level. These patterns, they're like nothing in the Council database, but they're similar to theoretical models from Earth's quantum labs." Hanbin stood up and walked to the window, watching as another group of aliens pointed and laughed at his ship. "How long to make the modifications?" "With Earth's help, maybe 2 weeks, Du-1 said. "But we'll need resources, and we'll have to do it without the Council noticing." "I'll handle Earth," Hanbin said. "Jai-Yun, create a cover story. Make it look like we're doing basic repairs, nothing special." "What about the Council inspectors?" Yunji asked. "They're scheduled to check our progress next week." Hanbin smiled. "Let them come. They're so convinced of their superiority, they won't look too closely at what they think are primitive human repairs." The meeting ended, and the crew moved quickly to their tasks. As Du-1 headed back to engineering, he passed a group of alien engineers in the station's corridor. He heard one of them speak in their translated voice. "Look at them, still trying to fix that worthless ship. They should just admit defeat and go back to their little solar system." Do-1 kept walking, hiding his smile. In engineering, he found his team already at work, carefully installing Earth's quantum processors into the ship's systems. The processors looked crude compared to the Council's technology, but they weren't meant to be elegant. They were meant to work. "Sir," one of his engineers called out, "the first test series is ready." Do-1 looked at the readouts. The quantum processors were talking to the ship's systems in ways that shouldn't have been possible. The empty channels in the hull were beginning to hum with new energy. And the power core was singing. "They thought they were giving us garbage," Do-1 said quietly. "Instead, they gave us a key to something amazing. Now we just have to figure out how to turn it." The Dawn's burden hung in deep space, far from prying eyes. Inside the engine room, Engineer Do-1 and Technical Officer Yanji stood before the newly modified power core. After 2 weeks of non-stop work, they were ready for the first full test. All quantum processors are online, Yanji reported, her fingers moving across 3 different control panels. Earth's systems are fully integrated with the ship's original technology. Do-1 nodded, checking the final connections. The power core looked different now. Earth's quantum processors, though crude-looking compared to Council technology, filled the empty spaces like missing puzzle pieces. The strange channels throughout the ship's hull glowed with a faint blue light. Captain Hanbin's voice came through the comm. Status report. Ready for the power test. Sir, Do-1 answered. If this works, well, we're about to find out what this ship can really do. Proceed, Hanbin ordered, but carefully. Do-1 took a deep breath and began the power-up sequence. The core hummed, its tone different from before. The quantum processors lit up one by one, their energy flowing into the ship's systems in ways that defied Council engineering principles. Power at 20%, Yanji called out. All systems normal. This was where the ship usually failed, forcing a shutdown. 30%, she continued. The hull channels pulsed brighter. 40%. The ship's lights flickered, then stabilized. 50%. Do-1 held his breath. They were now beyond anything the Council had achieved with the ship. Suddenly, alarms blared. Red warning lights flashed across every screen. The ship shuddered. Power surge, Yanji shouted. The quantum processors are drawing more energy than we expected. Don't shut it down, Do-1 said, watching the readings closely. Look at the pattern. It's the same one we found before, but stronger. The ship's hull channels blazed with brilliant blue light. In the power core, streams of energy began to flow in impossible ways, creating geometric patterns in the air itself. First Officer Jai-Yun's voice crackled over the comm. Engine room, what's happening? The bridge instruments are showing energy readings off the scale. Before Do-1 could answer, everything changed. The warning lights stopped. The alarms fell silent. The ship's vibration smoothed into a gentle hum. And the power core was beautiful. Energy flowed through it like liquid light, forming patterns that seemed to repeat forever. The hull channels pulsed in perfect harmony, and every system on the ship reported power levels beyond anything they'd imagined possible. Power levels at 300% of Council maximum ratings, Yanji reported, her voice filled with awe. And holding steady, the quantum processors aren't just working. They've unlocked something in the ship's original design. On the bridge, Hanbin watched as new capabilities appeared on his command console. The ship's speed potential had increased tenfold. Its energy shields were stronger than anything in the Council's fleet. And there was something else, a weapons system that had been hidden beneath layers of Council modifications. Sir, Jai-Yun said, I'm detecting a Council patrol ship at the edge of sensor range. They're asking why we're in this sector. Hanbin smiled. Tell them we're conducting routine tests, and make sure our power readings look normal to their sensors. As Jai-Yun sent the message, Science Officer Min-Su burst onto the bridge. Captain, you need to see this. The energy patterns we're generating. They're not just power. They're changing the quantum structure of space around the ship. What does that mean? Hanbin asked. It means, Min-Su said, eyes wide with excitement, this ship wasn't designed to just travel through space. It was designed to manipulate it. And with our quantum processors, we've finally awakened its true potential. In the engine room, Do-1 and Yanji continued their analysis. The ship hummed around them, no longer pretending to be broken, no longer bound by the Council's limited understanding. Should we tell Earth what we found? Yanji asked quietly. Do-1 looked at the beautiful patterns of energy flowing through their ship. Yes, he said, but not the Council. Not yet. First, we need to understand everything this ship can do. Above them, through the ship's viewports, space itself seemed to shimmer with possibility. The emergency alert woke Captain Hanbin at 300 ship time. Red lights flashed through his quarters as First Officer Jai-Yun's voice came through the comm system. Captain, to the bridge immediately. Earth's colony on New Haven is under attack. Han Bin rushed to the bridge, still pulling on his uniform jacket. The main screen showed chaos. 3 massive warships were firing on the colony's defensive stations. Their design was unlike anything in the Council database. Status report. Han Bin ordered, dropping into his command chair. 3 unknown vessels, Jai-Yun reported. They appeared from nowhere 20 minutes ago. Colony defenses are failing. The Council. She paused, her face tight with anger. The Council has denied our request for assistance. They say the colony is too far from their protection zone. Technical Officer Yanji spoke up from her station. Sir, I'm reading energy weapons we've never seen before. The colony's shields won't last another hour. Han Bin watched as another defensive station exploded. The colony below held 10,000 people, families who had built new lives on this distant world. He made his decision. How fast can we get there? At normal speeds, 6 hours, Jai-Yun said. But with our new systems. Do one, Han Bin called to engineering. Can we use what we found? Engineer Do One's voice came back excited but cautious. The quantum drive is untested at full power. We think it can bend space. But can we get there in time to save those people? Han Bin interrupted. A pause. Yes, sir. I think we can. Think isn't good enough. Do one. I need to know. We can do it, Do One said firmly. But everyone needs to strap in. This is going to be interesting. Han Bin pressed the ship-wide comm. All hands, battle stations, secure for emergency quantum jump. The Dawn's burden hummed to life, its hidden powers awakening. In engineering, Do One and his team activated the quantum processors. The ship's hull channels blazed with brilliant light. Jump in 3, Do One called out. 2, 1. Reality bent. The stars stretched. Every crew member felt a strange tingling as space itself folded around their ship. Then, with a flash that lit up half the sector, they appeared above New Haven. Transit time. 47 seconds, Yanji reported, sounding amazed. But there was no time to celebrate. The enemy ships turned toward them, their weapons charging. They're transmitting a message, Jai-Yun said. Audio only. A harsh voice filled the bridge. This system now belongs to the Ravagers. Withdraw or be destroyed with the colony. Han Bin stood up. This is Captain Han Bin of the Earth ship Dawn's Burden. You are attacking innocent civilians. Withdraw immediately. Laughter came back through the speakers. A human ship. In that ancient wreck. Watch as we. The transmission cut off as the lead Ravager ship fired. A beam of devastating energy shot toward the Dawn's Burden. Evasive action, Han Bin ordered. But before the ship could move, something unexpected happened. The energy beam hit their hull, and the ship's channels lit up like a star. The attack energy flowed through the patterns they had discovered, feeding into their systems instead of destroying them. Captain, Do One's voice was filled with shock. The ship, it's not just defending against their attack. It's absorbing it. Power levels are rising beyond anything we've seen. Science Officer Min Su's hands flew across his console. The quantum processors are converting their weapon energy into something new. Sir, I think we just found out what this ship was really built for. Han Bin watched as the Ravager ships launched another attack. Again, their energy weapons were caught in the Dawn's Burden's hull patterns, feeding power into their systems. Do one, Han Bin said quietly. The weapons system we found. Is it ready? Yes, sir. And now it's fully charged. Han Bin looked at the colony below, then at the Ravager ships that threatened his people. The Council had given humanity a broken ship, thinking it would teach them their place. Instead, it had given them exactly what they needed, exactly when they needed it. Target the lead ship, he ordered. Let's show them what humanity can do with someone else's trash. The Dawn's burden hung in space between the Ravager ships and the colony, its hull glowing with absorbed energy. On the bridge, Captain Han Bin watched as the ship's new weapon system came online. The targeting display showed patterns he had never seen before. Weapons charged to 300% normal capacity. Technical Officer Yanji reported. The energy they gave us. The ship converted all of it. The lead Ravager ship launched another attack. This time, instead of trying to dodge, Han Bin ordered the ship to hold position. The enemy beams struck their hull, and the familiar patterns lit up even brighter. They're just making us stronger, First Officer Jai-yun said, wonder in her voice. Every shot feeds our systems. In engineering, Do-won worked frantically at his controls. Captain, I figured it out. The ship's original designers. They built it to protect against exactly this kind of attack. It's not just absorbing energy, it's learning from each hit. The Ravager ships spread out, trying to surround them. Their commander's voice came through again. Less confident now. What trickery is this? No human ship could withstand our weapons. Han Bin smiled. You're right. No human ship could. But this isn't just a human ship anymore. He turned to his weapons officer. Target their lead ship. Low power. Let's test this carefully. The Dawn's burden's hull patterns shifted. Energy flowed from the storage channels into new configurations. A beam of pure white light shot out from their bow, striking the lead Ravager ship's shields. The effect was immediate. The enemy shields didn't just fail. They collapsed completely, as if they had never existed. Their shield frequency, Min Su called out from the science station. The ship copied it from their attacks and knew exactly how to counter it. The Ravager ships began to retreat, their previous confidence gone. But they weren't fast enough. The Dawn's burden's engines pulsed with the same quantum energy that powered their weapons. They're trying to run, Jai-yun reported. Let them, Han Bin started to say, but alarms cut him off. Sir, Yanji's voice was urgent. They're powering up some kind of superweapon. Energy readings are off the scale. The 3 Ravager ships turned as one, their hulls splitting open to reveal massive cannon-like weapons. Light gathered at the focal points, building to blinding intensity. Do-1, Han Bin called to engineering. Can we handle that much energy if they hit us? We're about to find out, sir, Do-1 replied. But if we can, imagine what we could do with it. The Ravager ships fired. 3 beams of devastating energy converged on the Dawn's burden. The ship shuddered as the blast hit, and for a moment, everything went white. When the light faded, the Dawn's burden still floated in space. Its hull wasn't just glowing now. It was blazing like a newborn star. Every channel, every pattern they had discovered was operating at full power. Energy absorption complete, Yanji reported, her voice shaking with excitement. Power level set. Sir, the sensors can't even measure it anymore. Do-1's laughter came through the comm. Captain, remember how this ship was supposed to be the worst in the galaxy? I think I know why the Council could never make it work. They tried to use it like a normal ship, but it's not. It's a mirror. Everything they throw at us makes us stronger. Han Bin looked at the Ravager ships, now frantically trying to escape. Weapons, he ordered, target all 3 ships. Minimal power. We don't want to destroy them. Just disable them. The Dawn's burden released 3 precise beams of energy. Each one struck a Ravager ship, cutting through their shields like they weren't there. Their engines died, leaving them floating helpless in space. Colony defense forces are moving in, Jai-yun reported. The Ravagers are surrendering. Han Bin sat back in his chair, looking at his crew. Every face showed the same mix of pride and amazement. The ship that was supposed to be a joke, a lesson in humility, had just saved thousands of lives. Send a message to Earth, he ordered. Tell them the test run was successful, and send another to the Council. Just 3 words. Thank you and why. As the messages went out, the Dawn's burden's hull slowly cooled, its pattern settling into a new configuration. It wasn't pretending anymore. It wasn't hiding. It had finally become what it was always meant to be, in human hands. 3 days after the battle at New Haven, the Dawn's burden docked at Earth's main space station. Captain Hanbin stood in the ship's main conference room, facing a wall of angry council representatives on the video screens. "You modified council technology without permission," the blue-scaled speaker said. "This is a serious violation of galactic law." Hanbin kept his face calm, though his hands were tight fists at his sides. First Officer Jia-Yun stood beside him, quietly recording everything. "We didn't modify council technology," Hanbin replied. "We fixed a ship that wasn't council technology to begin with. Would you like to explain where this ship really came from?" The council members shifted uncomfortably. On another screen, 4 different alien ships approached the station, their weapons clearly visible. "The Dawn's burden must be returned for inspection," another council member said. "For safety reasons, of course." "Safety." Engineer Du-1 stepped forward, unable to stay quiet. "Where was your concern for safety when our colony was under attack? When you refused to help?" The speaker's scales darkened with anger. "The ship. Now, or we will be forced to take action." Through the conference room window, Hanbin could see Earth's defense fleet moving into position, but they were outnumbered, and everyone knew it. The council ships were more advanced, better armed, or at least they used to be. "Captain," Technical Officer Yanji's voice came through his private comm. "The ship's systems are picking up energy readings from the council vessels. They're charging weapons." Hanbin smiled slightly. "Speaker, before you make threats, you should know something. The Dawn's burden recorded everything. Every message we sent asking for help, every response where you refused, every second of the battle where we saved thousands of lives, lives you were willing to sacrifice." He pressed a button, and the conference room's displays showed footage from the battle. The Ravager ships attacking, the colony's defenses failing, the Council's repeated refusals to help. "We've shared this with every human colony," Jia-Yun added, "every Earth station, every independent world in the sector. If anything happens to this ship or its crew, everyone will know exactly what kind of protection the Council offers." The speaker's image leaned forward. "You dare blackmail the Council?" "No," Hanbin said. "We dare to protect ourselves, something you never expected us to do when you gave us this ship. You thought it was garbage. You thought we'd fail. Instead, we did what humans have always done. We learned, we adapted, and we made it work." Science Officer Min-Su's voice came urgently through the comm. "Sir, the Council ships are moving into attack positions." "Let them come," Hanbin said, loud enough for the Council to hear. "Our ship remembers every weapon used against it. Would you like to give it more?" The Council members spoke quietly among themselves. The speaker's scales shifted through several colors before he spoke again. "Perhaps we can reach an agreement. The Council recognizes Earth's right to defend its colonies, but we must insist on studying these modifications you've made." "No," Hanbin said simply. "The Dawn's burden stays with Earth. But we're willing to discuss fair terms for sharing some of our defensive technologies. After all, isn't cooperation what the Council stands for?" More private discussion among the Council. The armed ships outside began to pull back, their weapons powering down. "We will need time to consider this," the speaker said finally. "But know that the Council is watching you very carefully now." After the transmission ended, Du-1 turned to Hanbin. "They'll try to steal our secrets. They'll send spies, try to copy our work." "Let them try," Hanbin said. "They don't understand what makes this ship special. It's not just the technology. It's the way we think about it. They saw broken parts and gave up. We saw possibilities and made them work." Through the window, they watched the Council ships retreat. The Dawn's burden's hull glowed softly, its patterns shifting in ways that almost looked proud. "Sir," Jai-Yun said, checking her tablet, "we're getting messages from other human colonies. They're asking for our help upgrading their defenses." And she smiled. 3 independent worlds have requested meetings. They want to discuss leaving the Council's protection for Earth's. Han Bin looked at his crew, then at their ship. No longer the galaxy's worst, but perhaps now its most important. "Send them all the same message," he said. "Earth stands ready to help. And this time, we have the right tools for the job." The emergency alarms woke Captain Han Bin in the middle of the night again. This time, it wasn't just one colony under attack. It was 5. Multiple Ravager fleets detected. First Officer Jai-Yun reported as Han Bin rushed onto the bridge. At least 30 ships, split into attack groups. They're hitting every major human settlement in the sector. The main screen showed the attacks. Red dots marked enemy ships, while blue marked human colonies. There were too many red dots. "They're not just raiders this time," Technical Officer Yanji said. "This is an invasion force." Han Bin studied the tactical display. The Ravagers had learned from their last defeat. They were attacking multiple targets at once, knowing the Dawn's burden couldn't be everywhere. "What about the Council?" he asked, already knowing the answer. "They say it's not their problem," Jai-Yun replied, her voice bitter. "But they've offered to protect any colonies that leave Earth's control and join them instead." Engineer Du-Won's voice came through the comm. "Captain, remember how the ship learned from the Ravagers' weapons last time? Well, we've been studying that data. We think we can share it." "Share it?" Han Bin asked. "What do you mean?" "The quantum patterns the ship uses to absorb and redirect energy. We can teach other ships to do it too. Not as well as the Dawn's burden, but enough to defend themselves." Han Bin looked at the tactical display again. Earth's defense fleet was moving to engage the Ravagers, but their ships were outgunned. "Unless, how long to upgrade our fleet?" "Hours," Du-Won said. "Maybe less. The patterns want to spread. It's like they were designed to be shared." "Do it," Han Bin ordered. "Jai-Yun, tell the fleet to hold position until the upgrades are ready. Yunji, push our engines to maximum. We need to buy them time." The Dawn's burden jumped into quantum space, its hull blazing with stored energy from previous battles. They emerged near the closest colony under attack, where 3 Ravager ships were hammering the defensive stations. "They've upgraded their weapons," Min Su reported from the science station. "Energy readings are twice what we saw before." Han Bin smiled. "Good. That means we'll learn twice as much. Take us in." The Dawn's burden charged straight at the enemy fleet. The Ravagers, remembering their last encounter, tried to scatter. But Han Bin had expected this. "Activate the quantum wake," he ordered. The ship's hull patterns changed, creating a ripple in space itself. The Ravager ships suddenly found themselves pulled back, caught in the energy field the Dawn's burden was generating. "They're firing," Yunji called out. Multiple energy beams struck the Dawn's burden. But instead of trying to absorb them all, the ship did something new. It caught the energy and redirected it, creating a web of power that trapped the Ravager ships. "Pattern captured," Min Su said excitedly, transmitting to Earth's fleet now. On the tactical display, blue dots representing Earth's ships began to pulse with new energy. The patterns that made the Dawn's burden special were spreading, teaching other ships how to defend themselves. "Sir," Jai-Yun reported, "the Ravagers are launching their main assault. 20 ships heading straight for Earth." "Let them come," Han Bin said. "Our fleet is ready for them now." The space around Earth lit up as the Ravager fleet arrived. They expected to find weak, normal ships. Instead, they found vessels glowing with familiar patterns, their hulls singing with quantum energy. The battle that followed was brief but spectacular. Every Ravager weapon was caught, copied, and turned against them. Every tactic they tried was learned and countered. The dawn's burden had taught Earth's ships to dance, and the Ravagers couldn't keep up. Enemy fleet is retreating, Jayun announced. All colonies report their attackers are withdrawing. Through the ridge window, Han Bin watched Earth's ships chase the Ravagers away, their hulls glowing with borrowed power. In just a few hours, humanity had gone from vulnerable to unstoppable. Message from the Council, Yunji said. They're asking how we did it. They want to know if we'll share the technology with them. Han Bin thought about how the Council had laughed at them, how they had tried to keep humanity weak. Then he thought about the patterns in the ship's hull, the way they seemed designed to spread and grow. Tell them, he said, that Earth is willing to teach. But first, they need to learn something about humanity. We don't just fix broken things. We make them better. And then we share what we've learned. The Dawn's Burden's hull pulsed with agreement, its patterns spreading like a message of hope across the stars. The group huddled together, shivering in the cold evening air. Maria looked around at the others, seeing the fear and weariness in their eyes. They had been walking for hours, trying to put as much distance as possible between themselves and the danger that lurked behind them. We should find shelter for the night, David said, his teeth chattering. It's too cold to keep going. But where? Asked Sarah. We're in the middle of nowhere. I don't see any buildings or houses around here. John, the oldest of the group, scanned the horizon. He spotted a dense patch of trees in the distance. There, he said, pointing. We can take cover in that forest. It will provide some protection from the wind at least. The others nodded in agreement, too tired and cold to argue. They made their way towards the trees, their steps slow and labored. As they got closer, they saw that the forest was thicker than it had appeared from a distance. The trees were tall and old, their trunks broad and gnarled. It was dark beneath the canopy, but at least it was dry. They found a small clearing and collapsed to the ground, utterly exhausted. Maria leaned against a tree trunk and closed her eyes. Despite the hard ground and the chill, she fell asleep almost instantly. She awoke sometime later to the sound of a twig snapping. Her eyes flew open, and she sat up abruptly, heart pounding. It was still dark out, but the moon had risen, casting eerie shadows among the trees. She looked around wildly, trying to locate the source of the noise. There at the edge of the clearing, she saw a figure emerge from the darkness. Maria opened her mouth to scream for the others, but then the figure stepped into a patch of moonlight, and she gasped in shock. It was a face she recognized all too well, a face from her past that she had hoped to never see again. The man smiled, but there was no warmth in his expression, only cruelty and malice. "Hello, Maria," he said softly. "I've been looking for you."